Good morning, happy Tuesday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. Got my Irish on today. Little shout out to my buddy Robbie Bork, who got it for me, my Irish brother. Hi Robbie, hope you're doing well. So Tuesday, I got an interesting question, something that I just actually had no awareness of at all because I don't pay any attention to some of this stuff. So I had to go look this up. And this question actually comes from Rachel. And Rachel had a question regarding knees, and so she said, I've recently been seeing more people popping up in the industry, highly recommending huge amounts of end-range knee flexion and ankle dorsiflexion to bulletproof knees. Is there any validity to this? If so, or if not, could you provide a perspective of these movement strategies? And then she wants to know, how does it relate to some of the gradients that we talk about and some of the propulsion elements? So let's unpack this a little bit and run it through a little bit of filtering. So we always have to look at some of these things through a number of filters, starting with, okay, who is presenting this information? Is this person considered an expert in a field where they have a vast amount of experience underneath their belt, where they have multiple failures, they've worked with a broad scope of people? Or is this an individual that is providing his own experience? So I talk about experience a lot because I think it's very, very valuable, but we always have to understand that it's not just one individual's experience that we can utilize to determine whether something is useful or effective because of the way the outliers impact things. So if I have an extreme capability that I'm able to demonstrate because of my physical structure or some genetic capability, it's fascinating to look at. It's interesting. It actually may be useful in guiding us in a direction, but because it is based on the individual himself and their unique capabilities, we cannot use that as a standard of anything. Like I said, it might provide us with some information that might be useful at some point in time, but we can't rely on it as an absolute. Everything that we talk about from a health perspective, so we're talking about like healthy knees, healthy ankles, etc. This is all multifactorial. There are so many potential influences. And a lot of times these things are presented as, this is the one thing that you need, and it is rarely one thing because we have this massive interaction. I'm always talking about, like, even during treatment, I really don't know why people get better, but what I am capable of doing is narrowing probabilities to determine what might be the best intervention under these circumstances for this individual in this context. So we have to narrow these things down in that way. But again, we can't say that, oh, it's this one thing that's going to make this massive amount of difference. It is possible that it is, it's just really, really rare. So again, this is one of those filters that we have to run things through. When you're looking at some of these extremes, so I actually looked some of this stuff up, and I actually looked at it, so I would be able to speak minimally intelligently about this. If you look at the way some of these people are accessing these end ranges of motion, this is about as idiosyncratic as it gets. So I was looking at one gentleman who has this extreme amount of knee flexion. He has a very, very deep squat, but the way that he accesses his deep squat under most circumstances would be considered a compensatory strategy. But if you look at the way that he does it, he also has two things that are very unique to him. So he has an anteverted hip, and he has a torque, a twist in his femur, and this is actually one of the ways that he is actually capable of accessing these extreme ranges of motion. So if you are one of those people that actually have these same capabilities, you might be able to do what he does, and you might actually find it beneficial under some circumstance. But for the people that don't have these little idiosyncratic elements in their anatomy, they will merely be frustrated in their inability to actually access these movements or positions. So again, we have to consider how this works. It's always going to be an n=1 scenario. That's why we work off of principles and we apply these excuse me, principles to the individual, and we work through progression to determine what would be best for this person in these circumstances. So again, we can't apply, one person's capabilities broad stroke. So what you actually need to find out through experimentation, very careful experimentation, always safe to fail experiments under the guidance of someone with a broad scope of knowledge, understanding, and experience would be the best way to do it. You have to find out what is normal for you and what is best for you under the circumstances within a specific context. So Rachel, I hope that answers your question in regards to that. Now, when we look at the extreme end ranges that these people are demonstrating, it would be rare that we would ever be exposed to these ranges of motion except under these exercise circumstances. So when we talk about like the extreme ankle range of motion, you're actually beyond what would be typical end range propulsive strategies. So some people may find that useful, some people may not. Again, their ability to access these extreme ankle ranges of motion, if you look at some populations that where squatting is part of their culture, they actually have changes in the ankle bones themselves. So the end of the tibia has an extra facet on it that makes it easier to deep squat at an extreme angle of dorsiflexion. The talus is also shaped differently, which allows us some of these extremes. But again, we're not really accessing these during normal activities, during normal performance. So again, the question then becomes, is this beneficial on any level at all? So always a question mark. But the thing that you want to do with these types of things, especially when we look at the extremes, is we want to try to filter this information as much as possible through as many lenses as we can to allow us to determine, it's like, okay, what can we take away from this that may apply to a much broader audience or broader population? Rachel, hope you have a great day. I appreciate your question. Everybody have a great Tuesday, and I'll talk to you later.